Gospel of October 31st, 2014. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. On a Sabbath, Jesus went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. In front of him there was a man suffering from dropsy. Jesus spoke to the scholars of the law and Pharisees in reply, asking, "Is it lawful to cure on the Sabbath or not?" But they kept silent. So he took the man, and after he had healed him, dismissed him. Then he said to them, "Who among you, if your son or ox falls into a cistern, would not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath day?" But they were unable to answer his question. Gospel of the Lord, praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. It is very amazing, to say the least, that the Lord, knowing that the Pharisees wanted to spy on him so that they would accuse him and eventually kill him, nonetheless he would accept their invitation to dine, and precisely on the Sabbath. This is a setup. Nevertheless, the Lord does not refuse to go, because God does not stop loving even those that are corrupt. You see, the Pharisees and the scholars of the law were corrupt. And why do I say that? Because we might be ignorant from time to time, but when we are open to chance to the truth, when we ask for the truth, when we seek the truth, then we are able to find God, or rather to allow God to find us, to recognize that we are found by God, and then we are able to convert, to change our ways. But when we are corrupt, we try to fool everyone, even God. Of course, we only fool ourselves, because God knows our intention, even deeper than we can imagine, than we can even think of ourselves. So nevertheless, Jesus goes to this place, and they are spying on him. They put before him a man that is ill from dropsy. So he asks the scholars of the law and the Pharisees, "Is it lawful to cure on the Sabbath or not?" God never prohibited to cure on Sabbath. It was the humans, the people, the scholars of the law, the doctors of the law, as well as the Pharisees, that wanted to load those unbearable quantity of commandments. The Lord is asking them, "Is it lawful or not to cure on the Sabbath?" But they remain silent. They do not want to question themselves. They have set up their own minds according to something, to their own willingness, and they are not to question themselves. And thus they are doomed. Because when we set our mind to something and we are very stubborn, we end up doing something wrong. You have to have our eyes open and our ears open, and especially our heart open for the voice of God. They remain silent. So he cures the guy. And then he asks them again, "Who among you, if your son or ox falls into a cistern, would not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath day?" And again they remain silent. All of them would have done that. But it is very interesting that the Lord is asking them, either your ox or your son. Perhaps some of them would not have children, but they would value even their ox. Who would not do that for your own son? Everyone. But when you compare that to the ox, when the Lord compares that to the ox, he wants to point out to the contrast of the lack of love that these Pharisees and scholars of the law have for their own kind. They would rather see their own kind, their own kindred, full of illnesses, than to try and even pray for him. because they despised them. They were so haughty that they despised everyone else. Even though they might call themselves close to God, they are far away from God, because they forgot to love God with all your conscience, with all your life, and with all your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. They forgot that. They would rather remain silent to try to accuse the Lord, but they do not recognize that the truth points to their own guiltiness. The question is today, how do we live? It's easy to be amazed at how the Lord puts these people to shame. But how do you and I live? Do we at least pray for all our brothers? Do we help those that are in need? Or do we just stare at them, rejecting them? Because maybe they're dirty, maybe they're lazy, maybe they're stubborn. Have we let ourselves to become corrupt? May God forbid that. Let us all pray for each other, brothers, that we might do the loving of God on the action of loving our brothers all the time. God bless you all, brothers.